Hey guys, Wade here. I plan on doing a major update on my aircraft build that would include the exhaust pipes, but I'm in the process of making these brackets at the end, or I guess the forward end of the exhaust pipes. And so I thought I would document that journey as far as constructing these guys up. Now, of course, securing the exhaust pipes on these Long-EZs is always a requirement in and of itself, and I thought I would explain that a little bit and then again document how I'm making these brackets. These brackets are modeled off the Mike Melvill style of brackets, where he has a sleeve, I should say a half sleeve, kind of a half moon sleeve on the top and then the bottom, and then he has a top bracket here which both helps cover up this aft hole in the baffling. And then on this side, there's that half moon or circular there, notch, cut out, whatever you want to call it there. And that is going to be for a little nub sleeve that the crankcase vent tube will then come out and it'll end here. Now, you can see the end of the cowling. I have not yet cut the exhaust pipes, and this is part of the whole entire process of getting these pipes exactly where they're going to sit, dialed in, and then get these sleeves done up. Once I get the sleeves done up, of course, that will lock in the position of the pipes. I'll know exactly where they're going to sit inside the cowling, and then I can trim the pipes to length. Clearly, I have this line here and the zip tie that's securing the right exhaust pipes into place. So I've spent the last 4 or 5 days making up these little 3D printed mock-ups of the top bracket piece and then also the bottom bracket piece that goes down below. I've had to do a little bit of in-situation engineering, if you will, because of how the clearance is. So essentially I've got all the baffling and the baffle seals in place. I'm not going to show those right now. I'll show those on the major update. But everything as far as the baffle seals is complete except for right underneath the pipes. So the bracket that sits on the bottom side, I'll see if I can get a little bit of a shot of that over here. This guy down here, that bottom bracket, there will be 3 points of contact where there will be baffle seal material, this stuff that connects from this side over here to the inboard side there to give coverage so that no air can escape past and underneath the exhaust pipes. So I'm going to have 4 of these half moon sleeves. They will be cut at an angle along with the top of the pipe, or I'm sorry, with the angle of the pipe, so that it's even with the back plate of the baffle. It will continue underneath, and again, essentially what you have is a clamp for these plates with these half moons welded into place that press down from the top, up from the bottom, that secure the exhaust pipes into place. There's a few different ways of securing these pipes. Some folks, they'll use a kind of a W top clamp and a W bottom clamp that squeezes the pipes together. It's got a little indentation in the middle. Secures the pipes out here. Some people will put an arm that goes from the pipe up to the cylinder or wherever that secures the pipe into place. Again, I'm following Mike Melvill, which this is fairly secure. I've reinforced the inside of this with some angle aluminum. So this corner on each side is pretty stout. And so I'll just be securing, again, with the clamp method, and these top and bottom brackets, I'll be securing the exhaust pipes that way. And then I will be also covering up the hole, which this of course has the same thing. There's quite a bit of a big oval hole on the corner here for the clearance on the exhaust pipes to allow them to come through the baffle material. Once that's all done, I'll trim the pipes to final length. I'll make a note that I've just recently, looking at the configuration, I've moved this inboard pipe a little bit more, which then needed, which this was cut and re-welded on the left side for the inboard pipe. The outboard pipe, I just inserted a scrap piece of a little minor curve, and that minor curve right there was enough to allow this pipe right, I don't know if you can see it, but there's the vertical curve downspout, if you will, of the inboard pipe right here, and this needed to go around it and curve just a hair to nestle in closely to this inboard pipe. I just a few days ago had my buddy James, who welds up headers on race cars, so he deals with 321 aluminum and more exotic, or I'm sorry, 321 stainless steel and more exotic stainless steels, which most welders will not touch, but James knows how to do it. He does a great job. There's actually 3 welds just in this immediate area. This is the original one, and then again I had to move this pipe a little bit inboard and make it curve and line up better, if I could get that. There's still a little bit of a gap, which according to Klaus Xavier is actually a good thing to have, just a little bit of a gap between your pipes. They don't need to be married together at the end. But that's the initial overview. That's what I'm looking at doing, and I'm going to be doing some plasma cutting, probably some machining. And I understand, I kind of went back and looked at some of my videos. It seems like the plasma cutting guys don't want to hear a darn thing or have any verbiage discussed about airplane building, kind of all the way around. So I'm sure people listening to this are going to be saying, yeah, you're talking way too much about topic A versus topic B, but this is the project to get these pipes finalized and configured into this aircraft and into these cowlings. Again, I just wanted to document how I'm making these, so pressing forward. Okay, forgive me for going a little Wes Anderson here on you, but I'm going to describe the materials that I'm going to use for this project. So here we have 48 thousandths 3/16 stainless steel. I have this on hand in case the thin, which I'm talking height-wise, bottom brackets on each side need a little bit more thickness. Now I do plan on using on all the brackets starting out, and then I'll evaluate how robust it is, but definitely the top side and then maybe the bottom side I'm going to be using this 36 thousandths 3/16 stainless steel. And then this tube is about 35 thousandths for the wall. I will have to bend it just a hair because it's a little bit wide in the diameter for the exhaust tubes, but it's the best I could find as far as cost. So this will be getting cut up to make these half moon sleeves, one on top and one on the bottom of each pipe, and again, those will provide the clamping force around the pipe. I'm going to cut 3 of the brackets out of this 36,000 stainless steel plate. The 4th one is on the 3D printer right now. I have to verify a couple things, but these 3 are good, so I'm going to go ahead and cut them tonight and get them out of the way and test the first cut and evaluate it on this 316 stainless. Here we go. Hey sports fans, welcome back to the shop. I tried to do this cut in this 36 thousandths 3/16 stainless steel. I wasn't getting anywhere. So over the last couple days I've had quite the adventure, as is quite the case when dealing with a fairly high-tech tool that you have not used, which is actually a system. So I'll kind of run down the list of what I've been up to. The plasma cutter, which I have a Prime Weld Cut 60, needs a shop compressor to feed it air. It needs to be at 120 psi the whole time the cutting process is going on. Well, my shop compressor, the pressure switch went out at some point, and so now I have to manually ensure before every cut that it's at full capacity. I have a new pressure switch on order. It should be here in a few days, but I had to run through that whole process and then find one. In the process of also getting this thing to cut, I updated my plasma cutting table CNC software for the fire control software. And then I also updated my torch height control firmware while I was at it. As I was doing the ensuing test cuts just on regular steel, I found on the forum there was a guy that had a piercing post processor that allowed me, instead of trying to make this big old hole right here, it's kind of like a straight in lightsaber shot that goes in one spot that marks the position of the hole. And so I was able to get that post processor uploaded and tested out, so that's pretty cool. Since my laptop has a 3-pronged plug, I also rediscovered, I guess you'll say, that I have to ensure that it's unplugged because it can't be grounded. That's how sensitive these systems are. So if it's grounded, it could present some problems. So now every time before I actually fire off the cut, I unplug my laptop and go off of battery power. I wanted to show this to you really quickly. This is the torch height control. I noticed that before. So you have an acronym and then part of the word, but anyway, this is the torch height control. This live voltage right here should be at least 0.7, and as you can see it's 0, but that's because my laptop is plugged in, and I wanted to show you this as part of the problem. I'm going to unplug my laptop. Look at that, it jumped up. So it may have sounded a little bit silly when I was talking about getting rid of the ground on my laptop, but it really does affect this system. So anyway, that's it. Just wanted to show you that really quickly and prove to you all that I'm not raving mad, at least in this way. Cheers. And then last but not least, this sheet right here. I spent probably 3 hours plus almost 4 hours yesterday, but I finally bit the bullet and I did a bunch of research, and thankfully on the forum there's a few people that posted a lot of data which I compiled and then annotated for my PrimeWeld Cut 60 plasma cutter on this Crossfire Pro, which is from Langmuir Systems, this cutting table. So I have the feeds and speeds now for just about every single thickness of metal that I'll be able to cut feasibly, and that's for mild steel, stainless, and then also aluminum. So that's all here, and I'm confirming it as I go. But I've already did a couple different thicknesses and dialed it in, or checked it I should say, and so far it seems to be cutting fairly well. That's what I'm going to be using here. Also, you'll note that I quickly designed and 3D printed a shroud. When I was doing my research, I saw somebody had one of those. They had a silicone rubber shroud, and that's to keep the water from splashing up everywhere and hopefully not contaminating. I've got some rust on this whole assembly in here. Also, because this is stainless steel and it off gases hexachromium bad juju stuff, I've got the shop doors opened, and I'll have a fan behind me when I kick this thing off. So I tried filming this the other night. I had been getting a lot of good cuts up until that point. I also swapped out, although they looked fairly decent, I swapped out the consumables as far as the electrode and the cover cup on this thing. We've got brand new consumables, but like I was going to say, as is the case, whenever it seems like I go to start filming something, that's when the gremlins come into play and knock me off my mojo. So let's get this thing fired up and see if we can get it cut. There's the back side. Minimal amount of dross, not too bad. I think that a lot of it should just come off. There's the front, so we've got a good cut here. There's the piercing holes. I'll drill these holes out manually on the drill press. this looks good as well, so I'll continue to press forward. Still looking good, very acceptable cut. Holes are looking good, they're marked. Every time I've lined them up with the templates, the holes are very close. We'll be pressing on with the last bracket. I'm also going to do the safety catch. Since I did the safety catch back in September of 2020, and that's the last time I was using this plasma cutting table on a regular basis, so I kind of had to relearn what I'm doing here. I'll caveat that as I install these, I'm sure I'm going to have to do a little bit of Dremel work just for some minor clearances here and there. But anyway, this is the last of the 4 brackets. I will be cutting manually with the Dremel tool this pipe or this tube to create the sleeves top and bottom that go around the exhaust pipes. Okay guys, this is a couple months later. I'm getting ready to do a major update video on the whole entire airplane project, and I need to close this video out. I've been trying to get a hold of James, but I do know that he is moving his whole entire operation into a much larger, much improved shop, so he's got his ears pinned back, and I know he's working on that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this video out like I said, and because I want it to be sequential before I do the next major update video and not have this video post afterwards. What I was waiting for James to do was along these seams right here to do the welding. I did my hack tack welds, and for some reason I just wasn't getting between the welding rod, the filler material, and getting a good bead. These are both about 35 thousandths thick. This one's a little bit thicker right here, this tube. These are 3/16 stainless steel, as in 316, not 3/16 inch thick. But so I was having a little bit of issue trying to get these tack welds going without blowing through. One thing on the bottom here, which is where I started, I put a layer of Kevlar in here just to do a very quick tack weld in a few spots. Maybe 2 spots, maybe 3 at the most on each side to set these half moon sleeves into position. And I had some discoloration on the pipes here. It didn't damage it. It was slightly discolored, so I said, all right, I'm not doing that anymore. So on the rest of these, as unconventional as it is, I would put a spot of hot glue here, and then hot glue here, maybe hot glue here, and then tack weld in between. It worked out fine, except a couple times when I added a little bit too much heat and the hot glue would seep down. Once that hot glue hit where I was actually welding, woof, it was like an accelerant. So I just had to clean it off and get acetone in there and scrape it out. It worked fine, enough to get the tack welds in, but it did cause a couple issues in a couple spots. I'm not really going to go over the crankcase vent tube. It's installed all the way. I'll cover that in the major update. Like I said, I'm just focusing on these. These they're fine. This is slightly flexible just because the whole assembly is a little bit flexible. These are in tight like I showed you earlier. If I move this, pretty much the whole plane moves, but this does have a little bit of flexibility. I know a lot of folks mount these things with springs, but I'm following pretty much exactly what Mike Melvill did, and it seemed to work for him. So I'm going to head over to the other side here. Okay, so over on the other side here, same thing. Oh, I guess I should note that I've cut the pipes to length, and I've positioned them. There's a little bit more of a gap in here than I was planning on it, just because of the way these pipes lined up here. But here's the other side. There's a little bit of a breakthrough right here. That's at the very thinnest point, and that was a flare-up because of that glue I was talking about. Man, I just barely started to hit that thing, and I didn't realize there was some glue in there, and there had to be, because that thing just flashed and it just superheated it up, and almost in a microsecond, compared to the other tack welds that just flared right out. But anyway, these are how the final configuration will be. I'll either get James or I'll get somebody else that has a lot better welding kung fu than me to finish these welds on this thin stainless steel around the edges. I'll clean these up, and of course they'll look nice. At least I think they look acceptable, let's say that. But again, these are nice and firm. That's about it. I am going to do a little bit of extra securing back in this area here on this side. Let's go over here. Again, these are cut to length, which they weren't earlier as far as the exhaust pipes. There's 3 of these pipe clamps right here on this, along this, as well as this guy right here. So there's about basically 4 different clamp spots on the right side. Again, I'll show that during the major update. I just want to focus on these. Okay, that's it. I'm going to close this video out. Hey, thanks for watching. Cheers.